Hi, friends. Welcome to Book Reading with Sammy. I'm so excited because today we have a super special guest with us. Meet Hope Larson. She is an amazing author and illustrator who creates awesome graphic novels and comics. You might know her books like All Summer Long and Salt Magic. Or maybe you have read her super cool graphic novel version of A Wrinkle in Time. And guess what? She has a brand new book, A Very Bad at Math. It's all about middle school friendship and figuring things out, even when math feels impossible. Sounds familiar? We'll be talking about that, plus how Hope comes up with her ideas, what it's like to make comics, and maybe even get some tips of young writers and artists out there. Thank you, Hope, for doing this. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Sammy. I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. So, Hope, we have a lot of questions for you. So, first one that comes to mind is what inspired you to become a graphic novelist?
I've just always loved writing and drawing my whole life. I always knew that I wanted to make books of some kind, and for a while I didn't know if that was going to be like picture books or novels, but just having an aptitude for writing and drawing, it really made sense to me to combine them. And plus, like, I really loved comics growing up, and still, of course. But I read newspaper comics. I got really into bande dessinée, like adventure comics, like Tintin and Asterix. And then, yeah. Then when I was in high school, manga started to be more easy it was more of them were being translated into English. And my friends and I just got super into manga, and that just blew my mind completely. And I hadn't read anything like those, and those really um, kicked off this real passion for comics. From there, I got into like indie comics, American indie comics, like Dan Clow's work, Ghost World, and that kind of thing. And one thing has kind of just led to another, and here I am now.
That's amazing. Can you walk us through your creative process, like, how you do it and how you finish a book?
Sure, yeah. So when I'm making a book, making a graphic novel is really a marathon process. It's really long. It takes a couple of years minimum. So I like to start with like the smallest sort of element of the story and then move forward to like the biggest element. I start with a log line, which is basically a sentence or two or a paragraph that describes what the story that I want to tell. So for Very Bad at Math, that would be like, uh, Verity Nelson is a major overachiever at school. She's class president for 3 years in a row. And then all of a sudden, she starts failing math, and her whole life seems to be falling apart. So that would be like just a sentence or two that tells you what the book's about. So I give that to my agent, Judy Hanson, who I've been working with for a long time. We talk about it, and that if she likes it, she's sort of like my first sounding board. Then I will expand that into a short outline, like 1 to 15 pages or something. Then we'll take that out and sort of pitch it to publishers and see if there's interest. And once we have like a book contract, then I expand that outline into a script. I write what's called full script. So everything that you see I'm just going to pick the book up. Everything you see in the book, like all the art and the speech balloons and caption boxes and even sound effects, that's all in my script. Um, so that all gets edited as well with my editor. And for Very Bad at Math, my editor is Andrew Arnold at Harper Alley. I've known him for a long time and he's lovely. So we sort of go through and we work out all the kinks in the story. And once we're happy with the script, then I start drawing it. And I guess I don't have a picture of what my pencils look like, but I do a rough black and white version of the whole book. So just like really loose, trying to get everything down on the page. And we edit that again. And then I do inks, digital inks, because I do everything, I draw it all on an iPad. And I have a wonderful colorist, Sarah Hagstrom, who comes in once the inks are done. She does all the colors, and I do the letters, and then we have a book. So that's a couple of years long.
Wow, wow, that's very intensive.
Hmm.
So, how do you balance the writing and the illustrating? Do you like prefer one over the other?
I feel like I'm sort of in flux on this. I used to feel like the right I so I start when I started making comics, I was all about the art and I was really not confident in my storytelling or my writing. And then I became more confident in my writing than in my art. So for a long time I was like, well, I feel like I'm more of a writer than an artist. And now I don't know that I'm sort of like balanced. I feel more balanced in it, but I'm really enjoying the whole process. I'm really enjoying drawing and I'm really enjoying writing equally, I would
That's
say.
great. Going to, going back to very bad at math. I know it's a little bit about a personal story, and many of us could relate, like, being bad at math. So, what did your experience shape part of the book?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, Very in the book has dyscalculia, which is it's a learning disorder that makes it really hard to understand and process numbers and math.
Hmm.
Most people have heard of dyslexia, and dyscalculia is kind of like math dyslexia or like numbers dyslexia. You might switch digits around. It's just really hard to understand what numbers mean and
Hmm.
to remember all the steps involved in math. So, it also doesn't mean that you aren't smart, which is something I always try and impress on kids. It's just your brain works differently. So, Very has that. I also have it. Some of the stuff that happens to her in the book, like when she's pulled out of her regular math class and put into a smaller math class with Lucille, who's this other girl who's really struggling with math. That's something that happened to me. Getting like a 39 on a math quiz, also something that happened to me. So I have a lot of experience with that. I think that there's more awareness of what dyscalculia is now and just that it's a thing. I didn't find out what it was until I was like 30. And It was like, oh, I've got every symptom on this list, you know? I think if I was a kid now, I would have an opportunity to get the kind of help that I needed at the time when I was a child. And I wanted to give that help to Very. So she gets a chance to sort of figure out a way of doing math that works for her.
That's great. That's amazing. And you adapted the classic A Wrinkle in Time into a graphic novel. So was it very challenging in adapting someone else's work?
Yes. That was such a challenging project in so many ways. First of all, I grew up reading A Wrinkle in Time and all of Madeleine L'Engle's books, and I knew what I was taking on by doing that adaptation. And I knew that a lot of people thought that doing an adaptation was just like disrespectful and a bad idea. So I had like a lot of pressure on me at the beginning, and I would say this is like self-imposed pressure. Um, so there's that element, but then also just the book is 400 pages long in my adaptation because I couldn't figure out how to cut it down without the whole thing falling apart. It's such this like delicate story, and you can't just go in and start like cutting things, or it just isn't what it is anymore. And if you go and watch the movie versions, I think you'll see how they ran up against those issues. But I was sort of able to get around it by just not cutting anything and then just, killing myself making this incredibly long book. I was in my 20s when I did that, and it was just I couldn't do it now. I was drawing so fast. It was rough.
But it turned out amazing. It's a great book.
It did. Thank you so much. Yeah, in retrospect, I'm so glad I did it. But that's the only adaptation that I've done
Hmm.
because it was so hard for not only the reasons that I talked about, but also just allowing myself to take some ownership of it and put my own creative spin on the work.
Do you plan on doing any more adaptations?
I might if the right project came along,
Hmm.
but I don't have anything on my plate right now in that area.
Um, what advice do you have for, aspiring writers and illustrators who want to break into the graphic novels world?
That's so tough because I've I've been doing this for like 20 years and
Hmm.
everything, the whole world is just completely different than it was when I started. Um, when I started making comics, it was pretty easy to sort of find your tribe on the internet. It felt like a smaller internet than it is now. Um, so I guess what I would really say is make stuff, like make your art and make friends with other people who make art, who make stuff, and encourage each other. That's really the best way to make good stuff, I think, is to find your little crew of creative people and figure out together how to push yourselves forward.
Thank you. That's wonderful advice. Have you ever faced like a creative burnout?
Yeah. So definitely after I did Wrinkle in Time, I was like, I don't know that I ever want to draw again. And I think I just had to like step away from drawing for a little bit and work more on writing. So I did just more writing for a while, and then eventually I was just ready to start drawing again, and I did. Um, I needed to take some time to do projects that felt just more personal
Hmm.
and that had less pressure on them. So that
Um,
helped.
you have written so many graphic novels, but if you need to choose one no graphic novel that's not yours, not written by you, that everyone should read, like which one will that be?
That's such a hard question because I feel like it would be a different book for everyone, you know? Um,
Mhm.
I thought about it and I decided that maybe Calvin and Hobbes would be a good one because it's like this classic newspaper strip. It's such a work of art, but it's like so accessible. And I think that it would also be a really good way for people across generations to enjoy it at the same time. Like, older folks, grandparents, parents who grew up reading it maybe as kids, and then kids can relate to it because it's about a kid.
Yes, yes. Calvin and Hobbes always wins. Um, if you had to describe your storytelling style in like 3 words, what would you say?
I would say fun, because I'm always trying to make my stories fun, entertaining above all. Um, Introspective
Hmm.
and relatable. I'm always trying to make them a kind of story that a reader can see themselves in a little bit
Hmm.
or a
Hmm.
lot, hopefully.
So tell us about a fun or a weird fact about you that we don't know about, from your books.
Okay, I really had to think about this one, but I sew a little bit, not very well, but I enjoy it. And I do these kind of improvisational stuffed animals sometimes, and I have a couple that I can show you.
Wow.
Still plugged in? Yeah. All right. So here's one. I don't know if you can see her
Yes.
little face. This one is based on a drawing that my daughter did. She was 4 at the time of like a little cat. So I tried to translate that drawing into this little kitty. Then I've got another one. This one's big. This one was for her school project on dinosaurs.
Oh,
And
wow.
I think this is called like Fabrosaurus. I looked it up and it was sort of like almost a cat-sized dinosaur.
It looks
So I
amazing.
I did the sewing and I gave it these little like button jointed arms and legs.
That
And
is
then
so cool.
my daughter did potato stamping on
Mhm.
the outside. And yeah, it was super fun.
This is
It
so
was super
cool.
goofy.
Thank you for sharing that.
No, my pleasure.
Are there any upcoming projects you're working on and you're excited about?
I'm working on another book about Verity and her further adventures.
We
So I'm
can't
pretty
wait
excited
to
about
read
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're excited too. And would you mind reading a few pages from your book?
Yes, absolutely. I'm gonna
Thank
sort
you.
of
Thank you.
try and shuffle things around a little bit so that I can both read the book and point it at the camera. Let's see. We start over here, and just to set the scene, Fairy is giving a speech to her classmates. Um, that's, well, she's giving a speech to her classmates, and she's hoping to be elected as class president for the third year in a row. If I'm elected, I'll raise funds to take the whole class on a trip to Danger Hollow Fun Park. And the class goes, woo! Principal steps in and says, don't make a promise you can't deliver. This trip sounds expensive. Don't worry, Principal H. I've got this. Then we have podcaster Nate, who's a little bit of a narrator. That's what he looks like. And he says, there you have it, another flawless performance from Verity Nelson, the gold standard of middle school politics. Later that day, this is Verity's house. It is based on the house I used to live in. She's simply the best. Thanks, Nate. But the best? I wouldn't put it that way. I mean, sure, I have the highest grades in English and social studies. The koala boundary. I'm undefeated in debate club. And that's why the brown marmorated stink bug should be our new state insect. I'm first chair clarinet, and no one in gym class can do more push-ups than me. 36, 37, 38, 39. But I still wouldn't call myself the best. Dinner in two, Very. Papa got takeout from Falafel Queen. Okay, Mom. It's true. I work hard. She looks down at her desk, and there are all these papers with A's on them. But I won't become as accomplished and inspiring as Rep Hazel Shaw by doing the bare minimum. She started as a barista and a drummer, and now she represents all of District 11. That's actually the district that I live in. This book is set in Asheville, North Carolina. And I think Hunger Games is also set in District 11.
Yes.
Am I right? So
Yes, it
yeah,
is.
we um it's funny because we have this historically conservative rep in this area, but the politician that I've made up for this book is like clearly very liberal. So it's my little fantasy of what politics here could be. She's my hero. Barry, dinner. And I'm on track to follow in her footsteps. Coming. There's just one cloud in my sky, and that's. She looks back at the waste paper basket by her desk, and inside there is a pre-algebra test with a D on it and a note that says "See me," which was always so terrifying when I would get that note. She says, "That's a problem for another day." So it's just kind of the setup for very bad at math.
Thank you so much for reading that to us. That's wonderful. I'm sure our viewers can't wait to get a hold of this book.
Yeah, I hope they check it out and enjoy it.
Thank you. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. That was really fun.
Thank you. I hope to see the next book very soon.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.